Hey, whoa, everybody. This is Dominic D'Angelo of WrestleZone.com, and it's just me, not my degenerate brother Marcus this week because he is on assignment away. He's gone right now. So it's not two Dynamite Dudes with Attitude. It's just one. So, gonna talk AEW Dynamite, obviously. I am live, so feel free to join in on the conversation. I want to talk a whole lot of different stuff from what happened on Dynamite to the outer surroundings of Dynamite to what's to come on Dynamite and Rampage and All Out and all that stuff. So have any questions, chime on in. Have any comments, chime on in. Have any disparaging remarks, chime on in, especially about my brother Marcus. I openly welcome that, and I will rub it in his face later on. So, yes. As far as things go, keeping up shop, trying to think if there's anything I really need to say. Not too much. Pretty good show overall at Dynamite. Some people might think a little differently. And you know what? There's always, so with today's society, it's very black and white. This or that. You're one or the other. That's very across social media. But if you kind of take a step back, look at everything, there's so much gray to everything when it comes to, whether you talk whatever. Honestly, I feel that way across the board about things. People, I hate labels, and I hate pinning labels on people. I don't like categorizing people. So it makes matters convenient maybe for people. And I get the, just the kind of vibe. And it's a very divisive world right now. But here's what I feel is like, there's a lot of gray area. So people will feel one way or the other. A lot of wrestling fans, ardent wrestling fans, felt a certain way about that no rules match to close out AEW Dynamite last on Wednesday, right? Overall, people were like, hey, great for Nick Gage, great for that. A lot of wrestling Twitter felt that way. You go outside that box, could be a little bit of a step back in a negative way for people. From like I don't know. I have some very a lot of my college friends across the board hated the whole thing. Some people went as far as to say it was an embarrassment to wrestling. Now I want to get your guys' thoughts on that too. If you feel there's if you feel it's an embarrassment to wrestling, if you feel one way or the other, let me know in the chat and stuff like that. Hey Nesha, how are you? I'm gonna try to keep. It's kind of hard to engage so much, but I definitely want to get you folks in on it. Where's John Cena? John Cena is on SmackDown. So he might be on SmackDown tonight. I don't think he was on Raw this past Monday. So what's up, Jason? How's it going? He was in Charlotte. Jason, let me know how you felt about the live environment being there. What was the crowd reaction specifically to the main event live and in person like that? I would love to get your feedback on that. Anyways, with the death match, obviously one of the big takeaways was and perfect synergy. I think Russell Rose posted about it first when I first noticed it, was the picture-in-picture synergy of Nick Gage holding up a bloody pizza cutter while a Domino's commercial was going on. Now that caught waves on social media, Twitter specifically, and then it went then it caught traction, and here, lo and behold, Domino's disavowed it and was like, no, we didn't want to associate with that. If that happens, blah, 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 kind of a strenuous moment there. And, from an advertiser standpoint, as you don't want that if you're any kind of show, or anything like that. Now, here's the thing though, wrestling is not ballet, right? It's not. Now, I will say I am not the biggest deathmatch person. And I will say that some of that stuff was like, oh God, the light tube. I did not think Jericho was going to go with light tubes. I did not think Nick Gage was going to pull out light tubes. I even made a joke about, when I was covering it, I was like, hey, I'm going to eat a light tube and stuff like that. I just did not think they were going to did it. But you know what? Jericho was okay with it. Nick Gage did it. And you know what? It caused a lot of unease, just me feeling that way, and seeing it. It's like, oh man, that's tough to watch. But if you're in it's a very small niche. My buddy made a very good comparison. who's a casual fan. He's a big Nick Gage fan, but he was like, it's almost like that super duper like deathcore metal. It's like that is not really mainstream, but there is a niche, for it where people will like it. And so now if you're on network television like TNT, it's gonna you're trying to cast a wide net of people that you want to bring into your audience. Now, the ratings for Dynamite were good. They were good this week. Tony Khan tweeted about it, third street break in the row, that they were like the highest, I think, in like the demographic or anything like that. But I'm going to be more curious too what those ratings are going to be like next week after this happens. Is that going to turn people away? Is all that going to happen? Is what they saw, the bloody pizza cutter, the light tubes, all the blood and everything like that, is that going to turn people off? Now, I was thinking about it too, and it's like, it's going on 10 p.m. at night. Wrestling is one thing. Sure, you'll see violence and stuff like that. That's a whole nother level of violence, but it's still wrestling. So, and like a lot of my friends were like, I don't know how anybody could defend this, blah, blah, blah. I like the aspect of, number one, I think from a standpoint of Jericho's story being told, what a neat chapter, especially if you're an ardent fan that knows everything about the business. It's a neat chapter in wrestling for Jericho. Now, I also think that the finish was awesome, wasn't it? I kind of thought it was cool. Jericho, you had, obviously was in dire straits. He did everything. And like, you got to tip your cap to Jericho too, to be willing to do that and going that far. Cause I thought it was going to be almost not like, Jericho's such an established star and veteran. He doesn't have to do that stuff. And, he went all out, pun intended. He went all out, and it was crazy. But from a storytelling standpoint, that finish was cool, where like he misted him in the face, hit him with that light tubes, and then gave him the Judas effect. 1, 2, 3. It's over. Second, he completes the second labor. Now, part of that issue, I will say, was we had a death match the week before, did we not? With Lance Archer and John Moxley, a match I really liked. Not a big death match fan, but I really liked that match. And, to have that week in and week out, you definitely don't want to make a trend of it. I'm sure they're not making a trend of it, but, it's like two consecutive weeks we have bloody matches to close out the show. You don't want to develop a reputation, but heck, and I would have made an argument that shouldn't that have been almost maybe the last labor, no matter who Jericho faces. He's facing a legend like his old rival Hoovy next week. People are tweeting away about maybe Lance Storm getting into the mix, his first match ever, his tag team partner. Like he wants to, maybe that's something he would want to do in this thing. Who knows what else is going to come up, but from that, the way that match was, there, a bloody, extreme, crazy match like that, you want to say, like, shouldn't that have maybe been the final labor? Like, he survived that. Holy crap! What's next? It's like, and so from that aspect, I think it told a good story of Jericho's chapter. And heck, if you're an ardent fan and you're familiar with Nick Gage has a heck of a story, and like, people in the industry really like him, and I've met him a couple times, and he's a very nice person. Like, he's a nice person, so it's pretty easy to root for him. So like, there is that aspect of it. But when you cast a wide net, when you're trying to bring in a big audience, and you're pushing away advertisers, it's a little contradictory, is it not? Like, controversy creates cash, and even Bischoff tweeted out like, hey, I'm not a fan of hardcore matches, but there's a variety. And even Cody says there's like, it's ice cream flavors for everybody here. And so there is that aspect. This is kind of a wait and see thing. I like, from what I heard, what Meltzer said was that Tony Khan like got the A-OK from TNT to do this. And, but heck, when you got an advertiser pushing back, you don't want to be reactionary to what that advertisers say, but you do want to keep that in mind. But like, you don't want to adhere to what the advertisers say, because you're going to dilute the product, not dilute it, but like stifle the product, because you're worried about what other what those advertisers are going to say when it's freaking wrestling and it's violent in nature. Obviously not to that level of death matches, but geez, it's there, right? So I don't know. Let me look and see what you guys are saying here. I want to take a look. They listen to you. I mean, never book a hotel, third party. Okay. So Jason says, I never got to saw AEW, care for him at all. Oh, Gage. Okay. I never knew who Gage was until I saw him at AEW, so I don't care for him at all. Okay. There's a place for those type of matches, Nesha says, but they work when not done regularly. Correct. I agree with you. You have to, if you're going to do them, you do them very seldomly and you pick and choose your moments. Let's see. What's up, Steven? How are you? Nesha, how did you feel about your daughter watching that match? I'm curious about, give me your feedback on that. Let's see. Rick says, oh, Rick, hey, welcome. You were a treat the last time, if that's the same Rick. No, it will draw more adults to AEW. What he will go through to get to MJF. Yeah, there's something to say to that. But I mean, even me, I'm a huge wrestling fan. Obviously, geez, I'm fucking writing for a website, and I do this like for another job. So, but even seeing that stuff, I'm like, ooh, gosh, like the light tubes, I'm just like, just not for me, not for me. But I get it. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm back from Charlotte. Steven had fun. Okay. Protest Dominoes. Yeah, I wanted to mention that. PBR, Pat's Blue Ribbon, really turning babyface. Dominoes is pushing back and being the heel, but PBR is like, hey, Tony Khan, get a hold of us. Pretty funny stuff. Hey, if you get another advertiser, like somebody thrown in there, why not? So Nesha says for her daughter, she's seen Jeff Hardy have a screwdriver through his ear. Ooh, doesn't seem to bother her. Man, that made me cringe real bad. I forgot about that. The screwdriver through the hair. Steven, I'll talk about the 10-man tag here in just a second. But let me see if I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, okay, Jason, you didn't see AEW in Charlotte. SummerSlam is going to be yeah, okay. So cool stuff. But yes, so as it stands, I like the finish of the match. I like the story that it told the match. I'm not a big deathmatch fan. I thought Nick Gage made the most of his moments, and I thought the promo he cut beforehand was really cool too, and just established like that chaotic character. And heck, that was a big part of it. Like, geez, this guy is nuts. He's gonna kill Jericho, and like going through the pane of glass, all that stuff, nuts, crazy. I kind of had fun watching it. I can't lie, it was fun. Like, people will say it's garbage and all that stuff. And other wrestlers, though, will say, like, whether they participate in death matches or they know about death matches or aware of it, say there's a certain art to it. And I think Eric Stevens, the former wrestler, mentioned that Nick Gage knows what he's doing. So really interesting stuff to think about. Now, the opener. Let's talk about that a little bit. I want to make sure I covered all the bases I think I wanted with. If you have guys want to give any more feedback in regards to that match, feel free to, and I'll try to keep looped in here. Okay. Jason says, with what you were talking about, I'd love to see Lance Storm in AEW just tag with Jericho again. You know what? I would like that, I think, too. I would like that. Where MJF maybe brings in a tag team of a certain name or something that's unexpected, and he's like, you have to pick a partner, and then or he picks his own partner. I'll pick up your washed up buddy Lance Storm, and there you go. There you go. I think that would be pretty darn cool and a neat thing where it's not like, I don't want to say telegraphed, like if it's Lance Storm versus Jericho. I think it would just, I don't know. That just it wouldn't make sense, I don't think, because what kind of grudge does Lance Storm have against Jericho? You can tell a story, I guess, but I think, Jason, I think that's a great point. I like that a lot. Hey, James is in here. He grew up watching Texas wrestling, so don't mind a death match once in a while when it makes sense. Yes, I do agree. I think there is a spot for it. Heck, Terry Funk's done them. Abdullah Butcher's known for them. Certainly in Japanese wrestling too. People will say, I get the pushback against it. From a mainstream overall perspective, and it's not my cup of tea, but it's there. And I wouldn't just hit that button too many times. And I think something to note is that, like, hey, we had 2 of these kind of matches 2 weeks in a row. So you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to develop a reputation. I thought it was fun to watch. So, but okay, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the opener too. So initially, I thought it was very cool. Wasn't that intro with Hangman Page, the Dark Order, that video of being a cowboy and all that stuff, really well done. I almost thought Hangman was going to get a new entrance music. Tell you what, you want to hear good entrance music. His name is King. Type that in Spotify or something like that. Or type in Red Dead Revolver theme. And that is what Hangman Page should walk out to. I'm telling you, it's good stuff. Anyways, but that was a good package. And then the Bucks coming out, it was a tie-in to Space Jam and all that stuff. But and it was funny. It was entertaining. A lot of my traditional buddies did not like that either. They're big into the Cornette world of things, and I listen to Cornette, and I think some of the stuff he has is okay and sound. Other things I don't agree with him with. I think it's a little over the top with some of the criticisms, obviously, because Dynamite's a fun product. I love doing this show week in and week out. So, anyways, the match itself, really fast paced. I like that it went a few commercial breaks. Some of the aspects of it though were a little messy. And even JR, you could kind of see is not his cup of tea that much. I do appreciate it when JR gets surly, or as they say in Grilling JR, red ass. You get red ass JR. Because he calls out Rick Knox for being a bad referee, and he's like, hey, he's on the take, isn't he? Kind of saying stuff like that. I appreciate that stuff. JR is always the checks to the balances, and I think it's great to have him there because, there's certainly the modern wrestling that, is, times change and styles change and all that stuff. But JR knows his stuff, and there's something to be said about how traditional wrestling works and how it's done properly and stuff like that. Obviously, a referee, you need to have order and shit like that. So, anyways, the finish I was shocked that Page lost. Down 2-1, I thought he was going to chip away even. Or 3-1 was tough. I was like, how's he going to pull this out? I was like, are they going to make him lose? And sure enough, they did. He had the fighting spirit. He kicked out of a whole bunch of stuff. But hey, you know what? He lost. And I was like, dang it. How are you going to do that? And it did present some intrigue because, hey, we got CM Punk coming up. We got Daniel Bryan coming up, Bryan Danielson. All that stuff is in play. So who is going to face who at All Out? Obviously it's looking maybe like Punk, maybe. Who knows, though? Who knows? Anyways, so I was kind of like, all right, you're jobbing out a guy you want to build to. And he was the predicted guy for All Out. Hangman has been told this story. And so I was like, at first, I kind of was like, I'm not a fan of that. But I saw something on Twitter. I mentioned Wrestle Roast earlier. Wrestle Roast is a podcast. I think it's 3 comedians and 1 wrestling writer. Yes, 3 comedians, 1 wrestling writer, former WWE writer. And they roast a certain wrestler of the week, legendary, typically. And then they also cover news throughout it. It's a very fun show. I've been a guest on there and stuff. I was on there when we roasted the Big Show. Anyways, so Scott Chaplin, one of the comedians, talked about, he made the prediction that Hangman's going to lose. So this was aired beforehand. And he said that Hangman, there's more story to be told with Hangman. So this aspect of the story was he found his friends in Dark Order. But he needs to win on his own. That's what's the story that's going to be told. He's got to win on his own. So I was like, you know what? I like that. And, I can buy into that. So now I kind of liked it. It swayed me. I'm for it. Let's see. I want to cover a couple of these things. Yeah. Nesha says she expected Hangman to win. Texas Wrestling is when I became a fan, and Jerry the King Lawler. Yeah. I've met Jerry briefly when he was at StarCast. They did the Andy Kaufman story, and I got to talk to him just briefly at the end of it. Yeah, he's a very nice person. Let's see. Oh, Jason just turned 45 3 days ago. Happy birthday, Jason. But anyways, so yeah, Now, basketball stuff, did it take away from the intensity of the moment? Maybe a little bit, I feel. It did. I feel a little bit. But the Bucks have not really been super serious either since they've turned heel, have they not? So, I mean, I don't know. Like, the stakes are high. The Bucks are cocky, so I'm not that out of. I don't think it was that damaging to it to bring in a basketball hoop and all that kind of aspect. Kind of funny that Nick even missed the dunk and stuff like that. So the opener I thought was pretty decent. Like I said, at first I was not a fan of the finish, but now I kind of buy into it. Thanks to Scott Chaplin. So good stuff. What else do I want to talk about with this week's Dynamite? Well, let's kind of break away a little bit here. No, we won't. We won't. Tanahashi, how about that? Huh? I was like, dang, the forbidden door is indeed open. And Tanahashi is one of the biggest stars New Japan could have walk through that door. So, at first you were like, yeah, he's going to be on Dynamite, right? And hey, he still might, but it's more so to promote the New Japan. I can't remember the name of the show that it is. If somebody knows the name of the New Japan show coming up, just type it in the chat. Nesha says the Elite got their swag back this week. Yeah, it was, the basketball look was kind of pretty unique. I thought it was clever, and I was all right with the Space Jam tie-in. Oh yeah, we'll talk about that too, Nesha Kaz. But I thought with Tanahashi, I mean, geez, the stakes are even raised because there's so much going on. Like from Punk to Daniel Bryan, now a big star like Tanahashi too getting in the fold, and battling Lance Archer at the whatever that New Japan show is going to be. And so it was neat to see him actually be kind of more of a presence on the AEW product. It's a lot of channels floating through and overlapping. So pretty exciting stuff. And I think overall, I did not mention this too, with Dynamite in that main event and that crowd and just all these different unknowns coming into play. What's happening here? What's with Tanahashi? What's with New Japan? What's with even like some NWA possibilities? And you could go on with some of this stuff too. Cody and Malachi Black getting mixed up. There's a buzz about wrestling. Now, wrestling is not as popular, obviously, as it was in the Attitude Era. And, it's going to take a lot of work to get back to that. But it's undeniable that there's buzz right now. And that I think this AEW product really speaks to a lot of how wrestling fans feel. There's an excitement that wrestling fans haven't had. Like, and when you watch something like WWE week in and week out, and not only that, but you blend the whole pandemic coming into play, there's been a lot of like stagnancy and expectations, negative expectations of what maybe WWE, how they book things and how they handle baby faces and all that stuff comes into play. And it's not as satisfying, because you always have Vince pushing back. And we'll talk about that here in a second too. Vince pushing back to the fans and not playing to their wishes when he should be in certain ways. Not you now as a promoter, you shouldn't always play to the fans' wishes because then you don't have really a whole lot of control. Now, but ultimately you have to listen to your fans because that's what gets you the money. And wrestling, since its days on the carnival grounds, was all about separating the consumer from their cash. So, anywho, I feel that there's a buzz. And you see the ratings kind of boosting up for AEW and kind of closing that gap in between Raw. It's a very satisfying time to be a wrestling fan. So I think it's been very cool to cover. And with Punk and Danielson in the mix, it just gives that feeling like, hey, something's big coming around the bend here. Now, will that have as big as a pack as big as a punch as Scott Hall and Nash resurging and making this big, boom for wrestling once more? Then you combine that with Austin and Bret Hart and The Rock and DX. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot of the current day stars are not to that level of household names. Like, I love CM Punk. I love Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's my guy. Like, Bryan Danielson's my guy. Like, but they're not quite, even Cena is not to that level of like The Rock and Austin and Hulk Hogan and Bruno, even back in the day, if you're going that far back. There's a bit of that separation. So, but heck, you have new stars. You have these very still established name stars like Punk and Bryan coming in, and that could make everybody level up if you handle it right. So very exciting. So this leads me into my next topic. Let me see. I'm gonna catch up. So here, Nesha, you say I miss your brother here. Wanted to know how he felt about Juice being back. I know. How exciting is that? We're gonna get a late take from him. Maybe what we'll try to do is Sunday, if he gets back, maybe we can do like a truncated one where like he just gives his quick thoughts or something. That'd be pretty cool. Yes, I believe Punk is back when we see him. Daniel Bryan, I believe, is signed. That's what Nesha says. So, yeah, jury's still out of. But listen, I think with the United Center announcement on Rampage, the first dance, and those ticket sales, you have to almost deliver Punk. If you're AEW, if you're Tony Khan, I think it's pretty. It's at this point, Nesha, I think it's a layup. I would say different before Wednesday happened. I'd be with you, but now I think it's gonna happen. Why book that big of a venue and then sell that many tickets? It's just, and then make all those hints too, like Darby Allin, the best in the world, and then just like kind of embracing the CM Punk chants in the crowd. That there's a lot of just stuff, and then MJF even made a reference to his pipe bomb promo way back in the day too. So a lot of things to think about there. Oh, thank you, Nomusa. I don't want to butcher your last name, but thank you, Nomusa. A lot of love from you in South Africa, Cape Town. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Yes, looks like Darby may get a rematch with Miro. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get that sometime down the line. But heck, we got Darby and Punk coming up, right? And you know what? We didn't even mention that. And to push back at Marcus is like, you can't bring Punk in as a heel. You can't. I think you can. I don't think it really matters what you bring Punk in as, whether it's a babyface or a heel. He's going to get a positive reaction either way. But Punk can play a heel, and Punk is you could argue that Punk's born to play a heel, but he's also a very good babyface. So I think you can play it off like Darby having him fight against Punk and Darby in the babyface role, even if Darby gets booed in Chicago. I mean, it's Chicago. What are you going to expect? You know what I mean? So James says, respect to your slapdick brother. So, yep. Hi, Rith. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Why has AEW not opened the Forbidden Door with ROH yet? Is the relationship with ROH and New Japan over? You know what? I would say it is. I don't think they had a very strong relationship. And you know what? I think what really soured New Japan with that relationship was the Madison Square Garden show during WrestleMania weekend 2 years ago. 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago. Just poorly handled on our Ring of Honor's part. I think there was just a lot of heads butting there. And, I think they moved on. They got Impact in the mix. They got AEW. Even loosely here and there, you'll get a little bit of MLW hanging out with like with Rocky Romero and stuff like that. But yes, I think ROH, ROH really isolated themselves. And I don't think the fact is that Marty Scurll still being in the mix helps. I don't think that helps. I heard something too where he's still working behind the scenes and all that stuff. He's just not a figure on there. And, I think that's a problem. You don't want to associate with that. That's just negative feedback for you as a company. If you're getting in the mix with all that stuff, I like ROH. Like overall as a product, I love the pure wrestling aspect. Jonathan Gresham is like a world beater. I love the new faction with Chris Dickinson and Homicide and Tony Deppen, I believe, is in there, and Brody King. I don't know the name of it. I know it's Violent something, but I like that. Yeah, I think it's a great product. But heck, you got to get rid of Marty Scurll. I think that's an issue. And, I can't blame AEW. I can't blame anybody for not associating with ROH to that level. A lot of work they got to do. Wolf, Guitars Den says Darby is a beast. I'm excited to see the new faces coming to AEW. I really want to see Braun Strowman though. Interesting. That's an interesting take. I've said before on here, I'm not a big Braun Strowman advocate. I don't think he really fits too much in the mix of AEW, especially with all these names coming in. I think you have your platter pretty full, even if you have 2 shows going. You know what I mean? And you already have big men that you're trying to establish, especially like somebody like a Lance Archer and a Miro to an extent as a big man too. I just don't think there's room for Braun, and I don't think he'd really fit in the mix very well. I still kind of feel that way too. Let's see. Right. Will Batista make his debut in AEW after he gets his Hall of Fame induction? Not as a wrestler, but as a guest or as a personality. I could see something. I'm sure there's maybe something to that, but I think if that happens, that's way down the line. I just don't think Batista is very inundated with wrestling at the moment. He's got his ties to WWE and stuff like that, but so did Jericho, and so did everybody else too that you think about. So I won't rule anything out at this point. And people, the thing about AEW is they have such a good positive reputation with wrestlers. Like, from a backstage dynamic, wrestlers love working for them. It's a fun environment. It's laid back, but it's friendly, and you see the product that they put out week in, week out. Now, you can parse it up and say, like, listen, there's issues with this or whatever, but ultimately it's a fun place to work. And, so I won't rule that out with Batista. Pretty cool to see Conan with Santana Ortiz. Yes, I agree with you. It's a shame though that like the match didn't go whole hog because of the injury to Cash Wheeler. But you know what? We'll see more of that coming down the road and stuff like that. It was a good match starting and going into it, and then like they had to call an audible. I mean, shit happens. Again, it ain't ballet. So I thought it was a good match. I always appreciate seeing Conan on my screen. He does add such a good element with promo, with the presence, all that stuff, and the knowledge. He's a very knowledgeable person too. So obviously, and he's got his fingerprints a lot on MLW, and obviously he's welcome into the AEW fold and stuff like that. So there's a lot of value to Conan. Hate to be Lee Johnson next week. Yeah, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm sure they're going to put him over just a little bit against Miro, but not too much. I think you really have to keep making Miro that world beater. You know what I mean? Cool to see Haku. I totally agree with you, Steven. Yeah, how awesome was that? And he even put the Tongan death grip in on Lance Archer. So it was a nice little aspect he got. Yeah, and I thought Archer, it was great Archer won that match too, because, he won the title. You don't want to have him just be a transitional champion to that extent where he just wins and then loses it. So maybe he'll lose it to Tanahashi. And that will still make sense because Tanahashi is such a legend and star. So that would be fun, I think. But yeah, it was cool to see him, and definitely cool to see Haku there. I would love to see Murphy in AEW. Yeah, Murphy is such a talent. I'm sure that people are keeping tabs on him, and he's got a lot to prove. He's got a huge chip on his shoulder. Like, he had so frustrated with WWE. You could see from the social media side of things how frustrated he was. So again, it's just something that you have to be careful with. AEW, like, they have so much talent now, so many stars that you got to factor in the mix. And 2 shows, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to come to a point in time where they got to kind of, I don't want to say thin the herd, but I want to say like come up with a system of some sort where you can either rotate talent through, keep some strictly to YouTube, keep some strictly to Rampage brands. I don't know about that, but it's like maybe just make them the focus, of those certain shows and stuff like that. The Labors of Jericho reminds me of the retirement tour of Ric Flair. That's interesting. I think that's a good comparison. Because yeah, it was pretty neat to see Rick go up against current day stars and still like fighting for that, defending that IC title, I believe it was, and everything. So yeah, that's a pretty darn good comparison. Let's see. Oh yeah, Nick, I do believe CM Punk is going to AEW. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I think it's pretty much telegraphed in a lot of ways. I I think the first dance kind of sold out today, actually, for Rampage. And so, I mean, you got to deliver on those expectations. Imagine them not bringing CM Punk for that. That would be crazy. So I think it's pretty surefire that we're getting CM Punk. And we might even get a tease before that. So we'll see how it goes. Who do you see from New Japan go against? Here it is, Rich. It's going to be Tanahashi, I think. Moxley cut that promo. And Tony Khan, I think he touched base with Tony Khan like the night before or something about it. I think that's what we're going to see at All Out. And what a stack card that would be if you have Moxley and Tanahashi going at it. Then you have Kenny Omega maybe fighting CM Punk, Daniel Bryan maybe, or even Darby Allin fighting CM Punk. Let's say that. And then Kenny Omega going up against Bryan Danielson. There's a lot of stuff we just don't know where it's going to lay out. And I think that's what makes it intriguing too. Like it is okay when stuff is a little telegraphed as long as they tell a good story. But hey, it's always cool to be like, hey, what's exactly going to happen? How's this all going to play out? Is Rampage coming to TSN? I wish I could tell you either way, Nick. I don't know. I would think, I mean, I think overall Dynamite in 2022 is moving to TBS, and I think Rampage is going to be on TBS first. So I wish I could help you on that. I don't know. I'll believe. Okay, with Cryan Danielson, was that intentional or is that near? I'll believe it when I see along with Cryan Danielson. Hoovy was more wins on Jericho than Jericho has more wins on. Yeah, that's a good point, James. Like the infamous storyline is Hoovy getting unmasked by Jericho, and like kind of just him getting the better of him. But you know what? He was still a great rival of him. I'm very excited to see Hoovy again. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and everything like that. The Undertaker will not go to AEW, Nick. I just don't think that's in the cards. I don't think it'll happen. Wouldn't want to be there if Punk doesn't show up. Yeah, Nesh, I agree with you there. Steven, let's see. Oh, if Punk signs with AEW, I wonder if he'll have that Call to Personality theme song. Heck, why wouldn't he? I think WWE doesn't own the rights to that. In Living Color got ties to him, and there was a note that In Living Color followed AEW, and then they unfollowed him. So I think they're in the mix. I think it's a play. Let's see, Good Brothers versus Guerrilla Destiny. I think that's going to happen. On the AEW, maybe not. On Impact, I think that's a high possibility. And then, or in New Japan, definitely, I would say. Is there any chance we can see Ted DiBiase Jr. debuting in AEW and feuding with Cody? You know what? I don't think Ted's too intrigued to maybe get back in the ring. But heck, you never know. Never say never. We did just have an interview with him, I think a month ago or so. Bill Pritchard, our managing editor, Pritchard interviewed. Look it up on WrestleZone. Just type in Ted DiBiase Jr. and AEW. There's like Bill talks to him for a good amount of time. So, and they cover a lot of fun ground. They do talk about Cody on there. So give that a listen. Okay, Wolves, let's see what you say. Whoa, one more thing. Because they're not using Bray at all at WWE, no, I don't think Bray's going to be there. Maybe they're down the road. I just don't think there's any discussion of that right now. And you know what? Bray's tough. I think Bray is kind of, honestly, I think he's damaged goods from a standpoint of he runs around in circles. His whole character runs around in circles. There's never, from when they brought him in with the Wyatt family, we wanted him to brainwash people and blah, 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 and like bring in like this, and we were excited for it. But geez, all he did was talk in circles, and he'd lose, and he'd lose, and he'd lose. It's tough. I don't like, and the Fiend was very intriguing. The Fiend freaked me out, all that stuff, but I think they effed him up too. Some of you guys might not feel that way, but that's how I feel. Brock is AEW. From what I heard, Brock is not AEW. Maybe at the moment he's not. But maybe that I would not. Again, I don't rule any of this stuff out. I think AEW does have to be mindful of their current roster and like know that they can't get too bloated, obviously. So Let's see. Undertaker is loyal to Vince to ever go anywhere else. Yeah, I agree with you. AEW doesn't need everyone. I agree with you, Nesha. Bo Dallas, that would be kind of cool. They could definitely do something with Bo. Yeah. So, but yeah. Now I wanted to talk about this, and you guys can give me your thoughts. So the conference call, Vince McMahon, the financial conference call, Q2 of 2021. I get intrigued to listen to those, and I even called in, like, to listen and hopefully try to ask a question. Obviously, didn't happen. I wasn't on there, but somebody asked a question, and it was about AEW. But they did, and they said roster. They did not say CM Punk. They did not say Bryan Danielson, but they mentioned like the boost and changes in roster. And Vince was pretty dismissive of AEW, and maybe that's the attitude you want to convey. I don't know. Like he said, they're not competition, doesn't consider them competition. Maybe we can give them more of our talent, like kind of taking a dig at him there. And, listen, for Vince to kind of be like, we're not paying attention to him. And then Nick Khan followed up by saying, like, we have our blinders on. We consider everything competition, which is a fair answer. But honestly, if you're a publicly traded company and you deal in wrestling, even though Vince does not like to call it wrestling, you deal in that business. Would you not? Isn't it? Aren't you beholden to your stakeholders to keep track of what your competition is doing? Because they are competition. It's wrestling. They're taking two of your biggest stars that you've had and putting them on their product, and they're catching up to your Monday night ratings on Wednesday nights. I mean, so I think it's pretty arrogant of Vince to say. Obviously, he's kind of always been that way, and I always feel like but heck, Vince has been in a bubble for the better part of 20 years. And, he does not, if you're not paying attention to that other product, how are you gonna keep up? How are you gonna, because you look at what WWE's been putting out. Now they've been lucky. I will say they've been fortunate and lucky because, I can't discredit Vince from a business acumen of like, hey, they got signed by all this stuff, like big TV deals, streaming. Everybody wants live content, and WWE is weekly live content. So boom, they get on Fox. Boom, they get on Peacock. All that stuff. Who knows where else they're gonna go? So they're wheeling and dealing. They're signed a blood money contract with Saudi Arabia. All that stuff. So it's like you can't, from a business aspect of like, hey, they're the top dog, and it's gonna be hard to topple them over. Now, but it's also like you're still a wrestling company and you still have things in the mix. So Vince secluding himself and them saying like, hey, we consider everything. I think Nick Khan kind of dumped a little bit of water on what Vince said and was like, hey, we consider everything competition, even sleep. But if you're WWE, you better believe it's their competition. They're just not saying it because it's, like maybe Vince isn't paying attention, and that's a problem. I would be willing to wager that Vince barely has watched a lot of AEW at all. Maybe a little bit, and the stuff that they get mocked for, I bet he watched. Otherwise, Vince needs the blood money. Benjamin says, yeah, I make it a point to try to call Vince out on that every time because you look at that when that deal happened. Hey, Jamal Khashoggi was dismembered. A journalist from the Washington Post was dismembered in Saudi Arabia, brutally dismembered, and they tried covering it up. But then you find out it was all Saudi Arabia that did it. It was the whatever he is. I can't remember those three initials of his. He took part in it. Like he had, it was bad. It's bad, and they still go there, and it's a blood money deal. And like obviously with the plane stuff, we don't know all the ins and outs of that. It's just a horrible deal. It does not make me want to root for them. It does. I root for the stars. I root for the talent because there's only so much you can do as talent, and you're making money. Like I root for them to make money. I root for them to become stars because they deserve that. And as a fan, you want to see that. Like Drew McIntyre, you want to see Bobby Lashley. I think has been very fortunate and good in his role right now. But it's just like with that stuff, it's such a turnoff, right? I don't know. Yeah, might be getting a Saudi show this year. We'll see how the pandemic handles it all. Nesha says COVID cases rising. I see it not happening. I kind of leaning with you. Maybe Vince doesn't consider them competition. It would make sense if you watch Raw. Yeah, I would say, James, I think that's a good point. I think Vince does not consider them legitimately does not consider them competition, but they are competition. And I think it's a problem that Vince does not see him that way. Obviously, you look at Raw. It's like, and my buddies through texting, like they were like, AEW is an embarrassment with that death match and stuff like that. My retort was, look, you look at what WWE is putting out currently. You have a doll that's basically hypnotizing people. As one of your top storylines. There's a lot of, I don't know. I mean, wrestling is subjective, so there's certain aspects that people can like about it, and you're trying to tailor to different types of audience on both products. But come on, I don't think one's a pure again, gray areas. There's gray areas. It's not black and white here. Trying to think. Oh, Nesha, I did want to mention that. Frankie Kazarian, one of my favorites in AEW going right now, showed up on Impact last night and to help out, of all people, Sami Callihan. And now it looks like it's going to be Sami Callihan. It's going to be Kazarian. And it's going to be Eddie Edwards going against Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers next week on Impact. And I think it's great. I think it's a good thing to do. Kaz is a great personality. He's got a great thing going right now as being the elite hunter. And, it's a nice little tie-in that keeps things fresh for not only Impact, keeps things fresh for Frankie, and, makes him kind of like on this mission and further accentuates that thing of like, hey, I'm going to go anywhere where these guys are going and track them down and take them out. So I did like that a lot. Best in the world, Shane McMahon is AEW. Oh my God, could you imagine that? Now that would create some buzz, wouldn't it not? Vince's son in AEW. Holy shit. Vince knows what's going on in AEW. He just wants to let in on it. He doesn't want to let in on it. Maybe to an extent. I think he's in a bubble, and I don't think he's fully pawed into it. I think he's more in his own world and more invested in his own product, and like they'll say, hey, that's a good thing. Focus on what you're doing and stuff like that. And I get that to an extent, but listen, what makes wrestling fun is when you have this competition going back and forth. WWE can try to slice it any way we want. AEW's competition for it. It just is. They would not be so reactionary to trying to sign Malachi Black back if he was to show up, if they fucked up on his non-compete clause where he's got the NXT contract still and he's got only 30 days, not 90 days. They would not do that if they did not consider him competition. But guess what? Boom, he's there. And they tried to sign him back. They called Buddy Murphy they thought it was him, and it wasn't him. AEW's competition. That's it. Andrade feuding with the Death Triangle, going to be awesome. Andrade versus Phoenix. Heck yeah. Andrade versus Pac. Andrade versus Pentagon. Plus you got Chavo in the mix as his manager and everything like that. It's exciting. It's going to be understated. It's going to be definitely a big understated match, I think, that's going to fall into All Out, and stuff like that. So very exciting stuff to kind of keep in mind there. I got to say, I liked the Ricky Stark celebration with the jazz, the brass band and all that stuff. Very New Orleans and stuff like that. It was brief, but it was pretty cool. Trying to think what else. Guys, what else did you like about Dynamite? I'm trying to think of other things that were good to talk about. Oh, Thunder Rosa and Julia Hart. Hard hitting. I think it was a good showcase for Thunder Rosa. I think they really did a good job at getting Julia Hart over too. Jeez, she's only like 19. Is she even 19? So it's a great start for her. They're really hammering the point home. Like Thunder Rosa is probably going to be challenging for that title sooner than later. And that's exciting because friend of the show, we call her, like Eddie Kingston. We say that I think the sky's the limit for Thunder Rosa, and she's going to be the next one of wrestling's next huge stars. From a marketing standpoint, from a presence standpoint, she's got it all. It's exciting. Let's see. Bandito should join Andrade and Guerrero. That'd be kind of interesting. Yeah. But again, that goes in with tying in ROH with them. And I just don't think you can really do that. at this moment in time with Marty Scurll pulling the strings, because that'll get a lot of reaction. Yeah, Nesha, I made the Eddie reference. Let's see what Rives thinks says. I've seen on the internet some fans put Vince in the categories with controversial leaders like dictators and terrorists, including Trump. Now, okay, I'm not going. Vince is not to that category of a Hussein or anything like that. Now, Vince is an alpha male. Vince is very Trumpian-like in that regard, where it's like Trump's got that, business. I'm all about this. I'm all about that, and they're friends, So there's a reason, like, they're big businessmen and they're stubborn, all that stuff. So that's certainly a comparison. To the extent of like a terrorist or whatever, Vince is a ruthless businessman, and Vince has an ego, and Vince is a bully. Vince is also has shown compassion, loves kids, and there's so much to be said of like when he really does get thoughtful for wrestling. Gray area again. Everything needs to be black and white on social media and on the internet. It's not. Life is not that way, and I'm not subscribing to that. I think there's so much gray area with everything. And I think, not to get too out of the element of wrestling, but there needs to be a matter of understanding with everybody too. And just kind of like, hey, come on. We're all people here. I think if people got down to it and had a frank discussion with one another, and like you took all the BS out of life and everything like that, I think a lot of people would come to a meeting of the minds. But we got so much bullshit in the way, right? Whether it's politics, whether it's social media, whether it's, you name it, anything societal, class, levels of class, all that stuff, all that comes into play. And, it muddies everything up, doesn't it? And it's frustrating. I don't like it, but yes, there's a business mindset. Hey, thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. I remember we talked about Kaz vs. Kenny recently. Now look, yeah, that's right. How about that, huh? Man, you were right, Nesha. Jeez, maybe they're not listening, huh? So no, it was. I'm excited for Kaz. I'm excited. I like Brian Cage as a babyface. I like what they're doing with Christian. They really put that over too, that he's undefeated and all that stuff. Christian's such a solid guy, and like I think he's really getting to flex those muscles. I gotta admit, I was not in tune with TNA when he was there for his first run. So I'd imagine it was very akin to something like this, but we're really seeing a great stuff from Christian right now. How over was Jungle Boy with that music and everything like that on Dynamite? That's what's cool about Dynamite. There's such a buzz with those live crowds. You're not getting that huge feeling with WWE shows, and that's what makes it kind of stand out with Dynamite, is you're getting these unique environments. Like, not every arena here looks the same, with Dynamite. And not only that, but you have these crowds that are into it and into new stars and chanting for new stars and very reactionary. So it's been very cool to see. What do you think about 205 Live? Honestly, I cannot give you too much about that because I know they did like some qualifier stuff with the NXT breakout tournament, but I have not been into 205 Live, and they've lost a lot of talent on that brand, from Anthony Green to Aria Daivari, who I interviewed a few weeks back. You can take a listen to that. That's still a great interview. He talks about all this stuff about working, and he's so smart. Like, there's so much he said about what newer stars have to be concerned with, and that's working TV time matches. Going back and watching TV matches rather than like matches from pay-per-views and stuff like that, because guess what? Wrestling is becoming a TV product more and more than it is a live product. Obviously, it's great to have the live fans back. I'm excited to see live fans back. That's what fuels the fire here. But it is becoming a TV product primarily. If Vince hates NXT, why doesn't he cancel the show altogether and bring some talent to Raw and SmackDown and the rest to be released? I think Vince is obviously, this is a Dynamite show, so I don't want to cover too much on this, but I think I think Raw, NXT, I think NXT has a sour taste in his mouth, and that includes for talent. Like, I don't think he views the talent. Vince's probably mindset is like, hey, if these guys get over, they get over, And I think he feels that way. And I think he feels that way about the brand. And you know what? It's always to that aspect of like, if Vince didn't create that person, or he feels that he doesn't get credit for creating that person, then he doesn't give a damn about them, or he won't. You're already not over with him. So I think there's that aspect of it. And it's not fair to Triple H. It's not fair to the brand of NXT and the workers of NXT and the stars of NXT, because heck, that's where your lifeblood should be coming from. But look, I like John Cena. I love Goldberg, but look what we're getting. Look at what we're getting. So there's a lot to be said about that. So nothing is black and white. The USA still just traded countries that prove minorities and re-educate. Yeah, I agree with that. Enjoy the fans while we can. Exactly. You just don't know. Let's see. It's Triple H's show. Yeah, I think NXT is a fun product. I think it is. I enjoy covering it. I don't think it's super duper hot, but it's still fun to watch, and I think it's overall a good show. So, yeah. Do I want to cover anything else in particular? I think that's about it, guys. Unless you guys want to chime in with some closing questions and stuff like that. That's all I pretty much have. United Center, obviously, that's big news. It's just a fun time, guys. Fun time to be a fan of wrestling in general. I think, and heck, with all this stuff, even with the Nick Gage and the Dominoes and things like that, what a wild time, huh? You look back, you think 10 years ago, Twitter was still around, but it's just to get all this weird engagement from Domino's disavowing and Nick Gage calling out Matt Cardona and Domino's, and then you have PBR getting in the mix. It's just a wild west on fucking Twitter. It's nuts. So, yeah, guys. As far as plugs go, just tune into WCW Rewritten. Marcus just did a show this past Sunday. We just did a doubleheader. So if you haven't gotten to catch up with that, tune into that. Tune into. I'll have some interviews hopefully coming up here soon. I went on vacation, and then I'm kind of getting back in the rhythm of all right, boom, let's tackle some more interviews and get more stuff done. So, but you can follow me on Twitter, like you see right there down below, at Dominic D'Angelo. You can follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. You can follow my degenerate brother Marcus on Twitter at Marcus P. D'Angelo. And you can follow 2 Dynamite Dudes on Twitter at 2 Dynamite Dudes. Also, yes. Okay, this is big news too. I actually created, I hope it's available. I meant to check this before I got on air, but I set up a new feed, an own separate feed for 2 Dynamite Dudes. If you guys could subscribe to that. So type in just 2 Dynamite Dudes, type in my name on your podcast listening option of choice, pops up, subscribe to it. If you're on iTunes, give us a good review. I want it's just going to help me get a better gauge of numbers and stuff like that, and seeing how many people tune in. So I want to create a own separate feed for 2 Dynamite Dudes. I might do the same with Rewritten. So if you can do it, please do so. And I'd really appreciate it. Want to create some more buzz with this stuff. So that's how it goes. Let's see. I want to make sure. Let's see. Thank you, Nesh. I love talking wrestling with you too. Dominic, which wrestler would you put in your favorite show? Now, do you mean my favorite show, like television show? Or do you mean like favorite wrestling show? So I'll answer both here. What wrestler would you put in your favorite show? So I'm going to say I love Justified. Now, that's no longer on. So it deals with like Kentucky, Elmore Leonard, U.S. Marshal, very kind of Western-y feel to it, but in a modern day setting. What wrestler would I put in that mix though? That's tough. That is tough. I don't know. This might sound weird, but I really like LA Knight. I think he's just got a good charisma and stuff like that. I think he could fit in something to that effect. I think he'd be a good. I mean, you put Batista in a lot of stuff. It'd be pretty darn cool. I think that would be okay. Television show. That's what it sounds like. Yeah. So Justified. I really like that show. I'm trying to think if there's another show currently that I really watch. I don't really watch a whole lot of current news. I like Fargo. Okay, here we go. Fargo. Or Better Call Saul. I love Better Call Saul. So who would I put in there? Who would I think go well with Richard Holiday from MLW? I think he'd be great in that. RJ City. Here we go. Yeah, RJ City. I think you could put in a lot of different stuff. So RJ City in The Office, I think would be cool. I know that's not a show that's no longer on, but that would be really neat. He was just on Celebrity Family Feud. RJ City in Mad Men. That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, he could play somebody in Better Call Saul too. I just think he's a great character and could really tie into a lot of stuff. So there you go. How about that, James? Domino should be happy. It was crazy timing. Yeah, I agree with you there. Dalton Castle and Stranger Things. That would be pretty interesting. Wrestling or house flipping shows for me. It would be interesting. Yeah, that would be pretty neat. Yeah, you could definitely do that. I think there's a certain aspect to the reality television and pro wrestling, like those kind of shows. You got to have characters and personas. That's what gets the show over. And what gets wrestling over are the stars. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. All right, guys. Geez, we went an hour. So, all right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Maybe we'll see you for a short little episode. I don't want to hold to that because I just don't know. But we'll get Marcus's opinion on some things coming up either way. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll see you later. All right.